The nipple's the most dangerous part of the body, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
It's where the sin lives.
Some of you may become somewhat uncomfortable as parts of this film unfold, but I think if you listen carefully...
Nature has intended that you have to be a supreme physical
A healthy, happy sex life is the most wonderful and terribly unpleasant. We've all experienced curiosity about ourselves and the opposite sex. Who hasn't?
Hello, everyone. I'm Megan.
I'm Marcella.
I'm Colin.
And
welcome to Remedial Sex Ed.
Hooray! Huzzah!
We had a really good last couple of episodes there.
Yeah.
For a sec.
Syncing up.
Yeah.
So, a couple weekends ago, Colin and I were in Florida.
We're in Florida.
Mm-hmm. We got to go to Orlando. I was there on business.
I was there on pleasure.
Yes. We got to stay. So for those of you who don't know, the Orlando Convention Center is actually surprisingly close to Universal Studios. And if you're going to the Orlando Convention Center, there are several hotels around there, but really we decided to stay at Sapphire Falls, which is Universal's fanciest hotel.
It was super nice. I got to ride the choo-choo.
So bougie.
It was it was very bourgeois.
Very bourgeois. But while I was at work, Colin had an incident happen to him.
Well,
An incident?
I have an incident report. And I just, I suffer for the comedy. I suffer to bring my story to the world. So, Megan was at work. I had a day by myself at the pool. And after my day at the pool, I decided to go and hit the sauna. So I took off all of my clothes and locked them in a locker and went with my towel on over to the sauna. And I saunaed for a bit and I showered. And I went back to the locker, and lo and behold, it would not open. It was jammed. So I was stuck there trying to open it for a good 30 minutes before I worked up the courage. Yeah, before it gets better, before I worked up the courage to ask someone who did have clothes to go and get a staff member or someone to help me open up my locker so I could get my clothes.
By the way, describe the towel that you're wearing at the staging
small.
game.
It was not a full-size bath towel. It was the smallest towel. It didn't go all the way around my waist, so I was just using it as kind of a loincloth to cover my shame.
At this point, we're definitely seeing some hip action, is what you're saying.
Yes.
High thigh, some hip.
You can see my whole ass.
My
entire
great.
Ass. Yes.
Okay.
You decided you could only cover one bit or the other.
Yeah, I chose the important bit.
And you went for the wedding tackle.
Yes.
Yeah.
The wedding tackle. Jesus. Okay. Not a phrase I've ever heard before. Tweet at us if you have any idea where that came from.
The wedding tackle, family jewels.
Yeah. The schlong.
The schlong. So I wait probably another 10 or 20 minutes before a security guard named
Don't name him.
Maybe I shouldn't dox him.
Don't name him. Yeah.
A security guard with a very curious name finally arrived to help me, and he got like the skeleton key, the master key to open up the locker, and it did not work. He had 3 of them, and he was just like really jamming them in there, really working it, and none of these keys worked. And so after at least another 20 minutes of that, he radios his boss, who is a complete idiot. I don't like it. The first guy was cool. He was my friend. He tried to help me. His boss was very bad. So he comes down, and despite listening to my friend describe his efforts to open the locker, does the exact same thing for at least 10 minutes, where he is just like jamming these keys and like, looking at them and reading their electronic keys. So he's like reading the instructions, changing out the batteries, just ramming them in there, and it's not working. And this whole time, they both can see my whole entire ass. My whole buttocks.
And we're talking about, like, you're at 1 hour of being non-consensually nude.
Over an hour of being nude. It's quite chilly in there, because it's Florida, and they've got the AC cranked up, and I was just in the sauna and the shower, and I didn't expect to be nude for so long. And I'm just covering myself with this tiny towel, and neither of them know what to do to me. And finally, the first guy, security guard, is like, look, I'm just going to take him back up to his room. Also, I didn't have anything on me. My keys, my wallet, my phone, everything is in the locker. I'm completely nude. And the boss was like, "No, we can't let him walk through the hotel with nothing on."
They couldn't find you a bigger towel?
They finally, after being nude for like an hour 20 at this point, they find me a bigger towel. And so I'm able to cover my shame, but still, the boss man doesn't want me to walk through there without a suit on underneath in case I have a wardrobe malfunction.
Oh, I haven't heard this part of the story.
Oh, yeah. No, there was some argument there. But finally, the boss leaves, and the first security guard is able to escort me up and let me into my room. I told him the wrong number at first. And he opens the door, and I go in there, and I'm like, oh, shit, this is not my room.
You made it in there.
Yeah, I made it in the room. And I was like, oh, wait, it was this number. And so we go in, and I finally get back up to my room after about, 2 hours of this. And I'm still nude. I change, and I wait for them to open the locker, and they did eventually open the locker.
At 10 p.m.
At 10 p.m.
Jesus.
that day, so 6 hours, T-minus 6 hours.
So just to recap,
the zero incident.
Colin walking from the locker room to our hotel room is still in just a towel. They never brought him a robe. They never brought him a swimsuit.
No, or flip-flops or anything.
Yeah, it's just naked and the towel.
Megan, that's a really good point. That is a bougie hotel. Their locker broke, locking one of their clients from all of their property. The least they could do was give him a free swimsuit.
Yes!
Exactly!
They should have grabbed me a swimsuit from the gift shop or something.
Not to mention, this is Universal.
Mm-hmm.
This is a children's themed resort.
Yes. I should have flashed the children just to show them.
This is
Not
what
the children,
happens
the
if
management.
you don't bring me things. We'll get into that later, but that's one of the cases of nudity that isn't allowed, is in front of small children.
No, generally not.
So, I come back after work. It's 6:30, 7 p.m.
And I'm worked up into a frenzy. And I'm like, Megan, you have to go yell at the front desk for me.
Colin is still without his glasses, without his phone, no wallet. So he's been quarantined into our room for 4 hours.
I couldn't even drown my woes with wine.
And so after
they
I finished,
for sure should have given you room service and all the wine you wanted.
So of course, this story is funny, and anyone listening should feel okay with laughing.
And I knew I was very upset when it was happening, but I always knew in the back of my mind that this was a very funny situation. In the back of my mind, I was always just like, this is an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. This is what's happening to me.
Especially since, Colin's a dude. He brought one pair of shoes, and they're locked in the locker room.
That's right. I didn't.
Oh, wow. That is a problem that I would not even fathom.
So, finally, I stopped laughing after 30 minutes.
Wasn't that long.
It was long. And I put on, my best angry face, and I go down to the hotel concierge, which is, being worked by a child. When I say child, she was, 19. But, and I put on my best angry voice, and I say, look, this is unacceptable. He was forced to walk naked through the lobby.
My whole ass. 2 people.
He was forced to stand naked in the locker room for an hour. It's been 4 hours. We still don't have his stuff. I go on a long ass rant. And in the back of my mind, I've never been, to those who know me, they know I'm very biased towards the Disney company.
Right.
And the entire time I'm going on this rant, while it is very possible that a locker at any resort could be jammed, I could never imagine Disney allowing you to go
Mickey
through.
Mouse himself would have brought me a pair of shorts.
Oh, yeah.
This had happened at Disney.
Yes. Customer service, different scales.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're yelling at the concierge. It's not her fault.
It's not her
obviously,
fault.
But somebody needs to know.
Right? And I was basically trying to get away with a resort credit. And the best that they offered me back is a free bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And so we go and have the world's most expensive dinner in the hotel restaurant. And in all honesty, we found a way to have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
I wore Megan's shoes.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Colin's wearing my flip-flops in the middle of this
Yeah, they don't fit
fusion
on my
restaurant.
feet.
I was gonna ask on a scale of like how overflowing your feet were around these flip-flops. Like how close are you in shoe size?
It wasn't too bad. I have very dainty feet.
Oh, how
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, they're very petite, but they're still not comfortable.
And so we get back up to the room. It's 10 p.m. They finally managed to get the locker open.
I got the locker.
And Colin gets his stuff back, and there is the free bottle of screw top wine.
They bring
Screw
me the apology
top.
wine, and it's a screw top.
With
I mean-
a note addressed to Mrs. Me, not even Colin.
Yeah, Mrs. Megan.
And
Mr. Megan.
And I open up the note, and it says, "Enjoy your island time."
Oh, yeah, it's just a generic note. We're not on an island. We're in Orlando. It's Central Florida. So that just is the button on this whole bizarre vignette.
All
And
right.
the screw top wine. I'm not a wine snob, but my apology wine, my shame is worth more than a screw top bottle of wine.
It is. We are putting that resort on blast.
We are. Otherwise than that, I had a lovely time. I got to ride the choo-choo.
And he says choo-choo, he means a boat.
No, the choo-choo, the Hogwarts Express.
Oh, you did get to ride that.
I went to Hogwarts. I went to Diagonally. I got Draco's autograph. No, I didn't. That would be awesome, though.
I
if
would
could
kill
get-
you.
If you could meet like a big head mascot Draco and he'd be mean to you, that'd be so much fun.
Totally kosher. Yes, I would love that. I have a picture of me and him at Comic-Con, and it looks like I am going to explode with joy as he is
I've seen
very
that one.
peacefully holding me around the shoulders.
So let's circle back to how this story relates to today's topic. So today we are talking about nudity. And I would say most people in this world do not have a very positive view on their own naked self. And
Oh, I certainly don't.
Oh, and we certainly, culturally, don't have a positive view on other people's naked bodies, with the exception of when we're sexually attracted to them. So where do we come into this belief that the naked body is a bad thing and should be hidden, despite the fact that everyone has one?
A naked body.
Yeah.
Just like under the floorboards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna slam down religion right now, and I'm gonna say that it's a religious premise that the human body is something that we have to hide or is shameful, and the whole complex starting with Adam and Eve.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes back to that old Christian guilt.
Mm-hmm.
But, counterpoint, there are non-Christian countries that still have nudity taboo. Oh, my leg fell asleep.
Well, can we talk about the Adam and Eve thing? Because I do find it interesting. So, in Salt Lake City, we have the LDS temple that has like the visitor center around it. On the upper level, they have one room dedicated to this large-scale statue of Jesus in space, and behind him are all these dioramas of the Old Testament. And also included in all that is a depiction of Adam and Eve. Now, what's interesting about this is before Colin, pre-Colin,
In the BC times.
mm-hmm, I brought my boyfriend from England over, and we walked through that space, and he found the statues of Adam and Eve just completely wrong because they were very modestly covered in like these leave dresses, and like Adam had full shorts, and he was like, that's just fully wrong because the whole point of the Garden of Eden is they got to be nude, and the second that God shut them out, they had to cover their shame.
So one thing I'd specifically say is it's not just Christianity. I would say it's any of the religions that like have the Old Testament specifically. So obviously Muslim culture. There's a lot of rules about how much skin specifically women can show, but also men as well. There's it's not just Christianity. I think in America, obviously, which is our context, it's very much the Christian religion. But yeah, for some reason, we're supposed to cover our bodies for anybody other than the love of our lives, because otherwise we're tempting them to sin and have sinful thoughts and do bad things, because nobody believes in self-restraint, apparently.
Getting at that a little more, the sort of American Protestant idea is that a nude body is always sexual, and that there's like no way that a person could be nude without the intent of arousing others. Because like there are these other Christian countries that are a little more lax, like France and Spain, for instance, which are both still pretty Catholic.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're a lot more lax about nudity at beaches and pools, and just because it's just a different cultural thing. They don't see it as innately sexual, whereas I think we really do.
Well, there's a really famous park in Oslo. I believe it's the Frogner Park, that has this very large-scale statue installation, and all of the statues are completely nude. And there are some beautiful, like, actually parenting scenes in it. Like, I have a picture from it of this dad trying to juggle 3 kids, all nude, which I found hilarious because I came from a family with 3 younger siblings, and like the statue really spoke to me. And they have like in it this entire tower of like nude bodies stacked on top of each other. And despite all of this, Norway is still a pretty conservative country. Like, they still have very strict gender roles, very strict definitions of family. I've heard mixed reviews on kind of the religious influence currently in the country, which you do kind of get into that a little bit with some of the European countries. If you have ones that have started going a little bit more atheist, for example, the UK, I believe atheists now outnumber percentage-wise those who identify as Christian. But even still, there's an expectation in the UK to cover up. And it becomes this defining line of what is okay to display in the naked body in art versus real life.
I was going to bring up art because I think it's fascinating to look at the times in history where we've really elevated the human form, and how that kind of has gone through cycles as well. Like, you look at Greek and Roman art, and obviously nude bodies were exemplified, you know. We cycle back, and I think Renaissance, we start getting more depictions of the nude form, and leaving just depictions of religious scenes, I guess is the right word. I'm losing all of my vocabulary. Yeah, I think it's fascinating because I think a reason that maybe some European countries may be further along than us here in the United States is their access to these kinds of art, and also just the fact that, you know, so we were started by Puritans. So like on a different tangent, but yeah, I think maybe access to the human form as art has maybe changed the perspective a little bit.
So when we start talking about things like body image and our self-consciousness regarding our own body, I think a lot of us feel bad because we refer to nudity as depicted to us by Hollywood or in other forms of media like magazines. And I mean, none of those images are real. There's so much airbrushing, so much makeup, so much Photoshop work goes into making a body look unrealistic. And yet for many of us, the defending argument from those making these pieces is that if we censor the naked body, then it causes more harm than good. You know, which side of that is right? Like, when is a naked body in art form helpful, and when is it harmful?
I mean, at face value, I don't think a depiction of a nude person is ever hurtful on its own. But like you said, with the airbrushing and photoshopping, you get sort of like this ideologically packaged version of a nude body. I mean, at that point, it's not just a depiction. It's an idea of a person that is being presented to you, usually by a company who wants you to think and act a certain way.
Yeah, I think the difference there is art versus profit versus marketing, and it's also incredibly difficult because we're accepting an idea of what the ideal body is. Because yes, there's a ton of like editing and photoshopping that's done, but also there are just people who are models who are naturally thin. And so like the conflict is, why aren't we representing more bodies that aren't just the model, rather than criticizing the female form that is naturally lithe and long and all of those things. It's just a really complicated argument to make.
Well, Marcella, what is your take on this? Like, have you ever been asked as an actress to do nudity on stage?
No, I've never done nudity on stage. I have been in my underwear several times on stage. And I think that for me, it's all about what's the story? What am I trying to tell? Why is it important? So much of film and television, if it's depicting nudity, it's just gratuitous nudity meant to sexually, I'm going to use the word stimulate the audience. And you know what? Like, that's, I don't think it should be shameful to watch programs because you're being sexually stimulated by them. Like everybody who watches Game of Thrones and HBO in general, that just does a lot of...
you come for the boobies and
you stay for the plot.
For the start. Yeah, stay for the story.
It's not like... I guess the question is, when does it become exploitive of the artist?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, like, so when it comes to television programs, there's like layers of reaction to them. So I'm completely fine with nudity and sex in any program that I watch. And I think a way to gauge it is you have things like Sex and the City, which has a lot of nudity in it and a lot of gratuitous sex scenes, but it's necessary to the plot line. I mean, it's a show about sex. Of course, they were going to show sex in it. But then you have the movie Showgirls, which is almost like it exploits nudity past what I think a realistic Las Vegas setting would be. I think it exploits it to the point of almost being a softcore porn.
Megan watched Showgirls for the first time last weekend.
I've never seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
It is classically bad. It has one of the more bizarre sex scenes I've ever seen in a movie, where I'm like, this was definitely directed and choreographed by a dude. Like, this is not real whatsoever.
Well, I think that's a good segue into the male gaze and how TV is usually made for a male audience, and how when you see female nudity, it's usually intended to be erotic or arousing to the audience, and male nudity is 9 times out of 10 a punchline.
Comedic, yeah, absolutely.
Unless you're watching Magic Mike or, there are so few movies out there that you could say have a female perspective or show men in a truly sexualizing manner in the same way that mainstream TV shows women.
I think one of the underlying problems there is the lack of allowing female directors to exist or rise up in all of media. Because sure, I think that if it were 50-50, human bodies would be exploited the same. Yeah, so I think a major issue is, you're right, there are too many men making film and television for general audiences that don't understand the female perspective. Yeah, I don't know.
And I think it's assumed, even by a lot of female directors, that the male gaze is the default.
Oh, I don't want anyone to come away from this with feeling bad about sexuality depicted in any form of media.
I don't think we're anti-porn or anti-eroticism on this podcast, because masturbation is healthy, and I'm sounding so old. But masturbation is a healthy and good part of being a sexual being. I mean, pornography is addictive. It often perpetrates bad ideas about sex and sexuality. And it is artificial, like...
Very much so.
It is a product meant to be consumed.
For me, seeing nudity in media has always kind of had two underlying effects. It's not like the forefront, but two underlying. One, it makes me think of every actress I've ever worked with who has a pretty severe eating disorder due to the horrible things that casting directors have said to them throughout the years. And again, trying to fit one model instead of the media shifting and showing multiple body types in anything, just period. Showing multiple body types, period. And two, sometimes it does make me feel like shit about my own body. You know, like especially when you Google performers' ages and you're like, oh my god, they're the same age as me.
Yeah, that's always a trip.
You know, I'm going through yet another round of, I've been off my diet for like 6 or 7 months just due to extremely stressful times at work and having to travel a lot recently, which makes you eat like crap and not exercise. And now I'm going through a hellish diet yet for the millionth time to get back to the size 4 and that obsession with always looking perfect, which is just, I think, constant. I think it's a struggle for everyone to find that balance of being able to look at yourself in the mirror and say that I am perfect just the way I am. Because there are features that I have that other women would love to have. And I think you get so caught up in the imperfections that you overlook those.
Nice.
That's my little soapbox.
As an actor, I will say that I definitely feel like I have to stay in shape more. I'm definitely at my highest weight that I've ever been, and I feel like it does give me less opportunity in my field to achieve what I want to achieve as an actor. And that's like disappointing. The theater community has always been very much like, if you're gonna be thin, and if you're gonna be heavy. Like, there's no average body that is put up in film and television and theater, and that's definitely changing, and it's getting more progressive. But I will say the theater industry talks a lot better than it does in general. It's difficult when we're consuming so much media and believe a certain body type is the ideal, and like, something that is also being confronted is not just size but color. Like, it's white thin models with blonde hair that have been the archetypal beauty, especially in the United States, having the Barbie-esque look. So there's definitely a lot of negativity when it comes to media and presenting just one body type. But how much of that is, I don't know, how much of that can be a self-started revolution, accepting our bodies as ourselves?
Well, I was going to say there's been kind of 3 things that I have found helpful. Unless, Colin, would you like to chime in with the male body image?
No. No.
It's all right. You already shared some vulnerability.
I did share. No, I mean, men and masculine presenting people, of course, also suffer from body image issues, but they are of a different character than those suffered by women and feminine presenting people. Stereotypically, men have to be really tall and really strong, and if you're not those things,
then you're really funny.
Then you are, well, yeah, then you have to be the funny fat guy. There's absolutely no in between.
So I would say that there are definitely ways that I think you can do a self-starting revolution to feel good about your own body. First off, I would recommend to anyone who is younger, like, if I could give any advice to my younger self, it would be stop beating yourself up and love the way you look. Because if I could go back to how I looked when I was 22, I totally would. I would sell my soul to have that ass again.
I don't know if that's the message we want to send.
But I just think it's horrible that you spend so much of your life beating yourself up, and then when you get older, you think back on it, and I was like, I wish that I had had so much body positivity, and I'm sure, like, 35-year-old me would say the exact same thing to me.
I mean, true.
You know? Not to say that older bodies aren't beautiful, because they are, but I think if your older self could ever give you advice to your younger self, it'd be like, stop being in your head so often.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really common sentiment. I actually just recently watched a BuzzFeed. I think it was like a girl, one of the girl teams at BuzzFeed. I'm really good at ingesting all forms of media and retaining all the information that I need to discuss them. Anyway, there was a recent episode where they went through and they looked back at pictures of themselves 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, and then 10 years ago or something like that. Some, like, 4 different pictures throughout time. And there was this, like, common theme of, like, I used to hate my body so hard, but if I could have that body now, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of get what you're saying, Megan, where, like, everybody should just be body positive at the time. But that is kind of also, like, yo, just be body positive now. I don't know. It's like,
yeah.
There's no winning.
There really isn't any winning as long as you have a body.
Well, I think some ways to kind of help yourself get more comfortable is have more exposure to actual real human bodies. Like, something that's helped me is I love Korean spas. Like, anywhere that you can go into a public bath completely naked is fantastic. And it's not like I'm sitting there like a little perv looking at everyone's naked body, but like being surrounded by actual human naked bodies is a reminder of we all have cellulite. We all have stretch marks. We all have these little imperfections that we're taught are supposed to be weird when actually everyone has something. Mm-hmm. And I think it's healthy to remember that. And I think another thing that's helped is anytime you go out somewhere and there's someone in like a little bit too short of shorts, or they're wearing a crop top, or just reminders of the actual human body instead of what is been specifically engineered to be presented to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really reminds me of that exercise that I brought up from The Ethical Slut. Just like live in life and walk around and people watch and see all of the different bodies that surround you and see all of the beautiful things about each one of these different people. Because like so much of our time is spent like criticizing everybody's body in order to make ourselves feel better, because that's what bullying is. That instead you could just look and be like, hey, every person walking around in life is loved by someone. Why not spot the things that person loves about them?
So let's take this and take it to the next side step, judging others and their bodies. So the fun, fantastical place that we grew up in, Salt Lake City. I want to talk about what is expected of women to wear in that place, because that has probably scarred me for life. Growing up, I developed early, right? By the time I was in 9th grade, I already had some fantastically 36 D-cup boobies, and literally anything I wore was considered revealing. Like anything. I would come to school in a full-size turtleneck, and I got flagged by our English teacher for dressing risque.
It's this, like, ingrained belief that, especially the female form, is bad and shameful and causes sin and is wrong. And women have been taught to criticize each other. It's sad to me that you were so hurt by it, Meg. I definitely had the polar opposite reaction where I was just like, oh, no, fuck this. I wear crop tops every day now. Because I'm just a dick. So if you tell me not to do something, that is the first thing I want to do. But I could see how it would be so much more difficult for you, Megan, because your form was more curvaceous. So people automatically assumed that your body was more tempting.
It took me years to get over it. Like, I think it was junior or senior year of high school where I finally just decided, fuck it. And I remember one of the incidents where I officially saw the light and I saw that people were being ridiculous. Like, I was wearing full leggings, a skirt, and just a regular t-shirt. And people were criticizing me for, like, trying to be, like, Catholic school girl-esque. And that was my breaking point. That was when I was like, you know what? I'm never going to win.
Yeah.
So I've officially stopped trying to please other people with this wardrobe nonsense. And that's when Marcella and I became friends. And we bought someone from an auction once. And we purposely dressed up like sluts to embarrass him.
That was a good time.
Yeah. I don't know how to advise people of how to get to their own aha moment of like, I'm just going to dress how I dress and be happy with it. But I hope you find it.
Yeah, you really can't win. It is particularly toxic that we enforce these rules from such a young age. And that it's always centered like girls have to cover themselves or the boys will be tempted. We definitely had that in church, but it was the same thing in school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's girls' fault that boys are thinking lustful thoughts about them.
Not at all. Hormones.
No, it's not at all just a
not
natural
at all
part.
Biological. That everyone is thinking lustful thoughts
All the
as
time,
a teenager.
You're a teenager.
God, people are stupid.
I remember the very, very first time I was brave enough to go out in a crop top. It was a costume party where the theme was Star Wars. And oh God, this is embarrassing for me. The alien with like the two things coming out of her head who's dancing at Jabba's palace.
Oh, yeah. The Twi'lek dancer girl.
Yeah, I went dressed as a Twi'lek to a bar, which includes wearing a crop top, and it was like a huge moment for me. I felt amazing.
Nice.
I felt awesome.
That's
and
great.
Yeah, I want everyone to get to that point.
Megan, would you mind sharing how old you were when that happened?
I think I was 25. It took some time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you always felt comfortable with crop tops and shorts?
I mean, I've always known that it was rebelling against the system, and I've definitely felt the glares and stares and comments. Like, I've definitely experienced it. But, again, I'm an asshole. So I enjoyed the hell out of it. I loved it. The more you judged me, the more I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to be one of you. Like, I was such a gross little rebel that it's always just been like, yeah, and I think I'm actually having more trouble right now being at my highest weight. And all of my summer clothes have always been crop tops and things like that, and not feeling confident enough to wear that right now. I think I'm definitely struggling with that more at 28 years old than ever before. And I'm sure the commentary is, at 28 years old, why are you wearing crop tops? But because I damn can, is my answer. I think it's been more interesting and growing for me right now. And I also have to say, like, all of this comes with a grain of salt, because the difference in my personal body weight is 15 to 20 from my low. So I realize that, like, for many people that's not a large swing in body change, but for me it's been definitely difficult to, like, be confident in my own skin with. Yeah, I think I'm noticing more and more the negative culture that we put on women who have any curves whatsoever.
Yeah.
That absolutely sucks, because you're still really hot.
Ah, thank you. That's exactly what I came on this podcast to hear.
But, like, the fact that you're having these negative body issues, that sucks, because so much to be positive in your own self about.
Yeah, I think the bigger note here that maybe we should talk about is just like the aging naked form. Because nobody
it's relevant to all of us.
Yeah, we're aging. And that means different things, and our bodies look different, and they're not defying gravity like they once did. And like that, we're still attractive. We're still very attractive human beings, and it's not fair to look back at our 22-year-old selves because our bodies are not meant to stay that way for all of time.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then there are people who are the fittest and hottest they've ever been in their 50s. And to them, I say, teach me your ways.
I salute them.
Oh my God. So the aging body. So I was not obsessed with fitness or diet whatsoever when I was young. In fact, I very purposely ate a diet of crap. But recently, I've just become so obsessed with, like, slimming back down. We're back on a very regimented diet. I've been exercising 3 to 4 times a week with, like, death camp sweat lodge yoga classes. And
that's the name of my death metal band.
And it's all because, like, I'm sick and tired of seeing the cellulite in my ass, and I'm sick and tired of, there's no fix for this, but my boobs are officially saggy. Like, and I've already resorted that after I'm done having kids, I'm definitely getting plastic surgery to lift them back up. It's already been decided.
And that's your prerogative. Mm-hmm. I'm still a fan of all of it.
And I think the biggest thing that hit me with age is I knew gray hair was coming. And actually, I have accepted the gray hair into my life because I feel as though it gives me more confidence in business meetings, which is a whole separate issue.
Yeah.
But the thing I'm really struggling with and I'm really self-conscious about is the dark hairs that appear on my face.
As a Latina, I say welcome. I've had dark hair covering my entire face since I was 14 years old. Yeah. Why? Yeah. There's no... Yeah. Yeah, talking about nudity, why do we have this obsession with hair removal? And I can't talk any shade because I have paid thousands of dollars for full body laser hair removal. So, like, I'm coming from the perspective that I have fallen for what society told me was beautiful, and I went for it.
I like it. I know a lot of people are not on board with the obsession with hair removal, but whenever I do, I like those near leg masks. That not only do the hair removal, but also exfoliate. And then I become obsessed with touching my own legs.
Dude, I agree. I love the feeling of my legs when they're shaved. But are we just conforming and accepting what we've been told?
Possibly, but it's so soft.
It is so soft.
Does anyone have anything positive to say about their body? Something that they love about it?
I have great eyelashes.
You do. Oh my God.
They're very long and pretty.
Okay, so one thing that everyone I know, every one of my girlfriends covets about my body, which is something that I don't covet about my body, is I have very small boobs, so they're perky forever. Like, they're not moving at all. They're never going anywhere because they can't. They don't have enough to go anywhere. So, like...
That is lovely.
I feel like people have constantly told me that I've got great boobs. But, yeah, I'm constantly jealous of people who have boobs, like Megan. So...
I will be investing in push-up bras for the longest time because I want the world to believe that they're always at this level. And only Colin will know.
I like
Lol.
them.
And I invest in push-up bras because I buy the most padded ones so that people will always believe that there is more there than there actually is.
Okay, so we want people to find ways to feel better about their body, and I think we've discussed ways that, you can get more in check with reality and more in love with yourself, and I do want everyone to start looking at themselves and thinking about things that they really do like. Now, when does sharing your naked body become a bad thing?
Consent!
We have this thing called the Sex Offenders Registry.
Hey.
Yes. this was specifically designed to be a predictive sense of crime. So it's a list designed for police to keep special watch on those who may sexually assault a child. There is no excuse ever to pursue a child sexually. Like, I am very black and white on this issue. Those who abuse them, those who take part in child pornography, all of that is absolutely horrible. And we could eventually do an episode on the sex offenders list, because at the most extreme case of it, it's very easy to be black and white on it. On the other end of it, it's very easy to be black and white about it. And then in the middle, there becomes this weird gray area. Because not only can you get on the sex offenders list for being terrible, but you can also get on it for not really being terrible, like public urination. So, things that you can do. You are just flat out not allowed to be naked in public. It is illegal in every 50 states. There are certain states that have exceptions to this law. For example, in California, if you go to a specifically publicly stated nudist beach, you can be naked while you are on the beach. However, the second you get off that premises, you must be clothed again. There are nudity laws in, again, all 50 states, and the reason for this being is, well, I think most people will agree that streaking is funny, and I don't think that people who are running through for the sake of comedy have any ill intentions other than to be an asshole. It's very hard legally to define the difference between nudity for comedy versus flashing, which is specifically using your naked body to cause someone harmful distress. And since it is very hard in legalese to define what is a crime and what is fine, it's just a blanket, you can't be naked in public.
Do these laws define what nudity is?
I don't have the specific laws in front of me.
I see. I'm just wondering about going topless in certain places.
That's an interesting debate.
Yeah, it is an interesting debate. I think some cities allow women to be topless.
I think you still have to have some form of coverage on the nipple.
The nipple's the most dangerous part of the body, as we all know. Mm-hmm. It's where the sin lives.
And it's literally just the nipple, because we can see every other part of the woman's boob. You can do under boob. You can do, like, cleavage. You can do side boob. You can do everything all around it. But the female nipple is very sexual compared to the male nipple.
It is.
Don't you know, kids?
Yeah, so let's talk about the sex offenders list, or just briefly the topics that apply to this conversation. So, any form of public nudity can get you on the sex offenders list. Now, the registry is ranked, so they have low risk, medium risk, high risk, and like someone who is 60% likely to molest a child.
Wait, they get that specific?
Yeah. There's a whole chart, if you Google it, there's a whole chart basically on how the ranking works for the sex offenders list.
I'll have to post that in the show notes.
Yeah, so, and also they rank it based on how many years since the offense passed. So, like, if you were, like, ranked a level 3, you can go down to a level 1 after, like, 5 years or something like that. Now, all of these things that I'm going to discuss to you are low-level things that still get you on the registry. You're just not linked with those who have, like, committed rape or...
These are the lowest level.
Yeah, these are the lowest level. Uh-huh. Unfortunately, depending on what state you live in, so anyone is free to go on a website, enter in their zip code, and see all of the sex offenders who live next to them. Mm-hmm. Which... Fun fact, Long Beach has one of the highest ratings.
For, like, the highest number of sex offenders?
Yeah, like in population density.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, go us.
Well, huh. I don't know how I feel about that.
A lot of them are ranked in the domestic violence situation. Anyway, not great.
No, not great.
Still bad, not good. Where was I going with this? So, unfortunately, depending on what city you live in, some cities do not post those who have been arrested for public urination on that zip code like registry thing, whereas other places do.
Public urination
shouldn't be on there.
No, I think it's just yet another way that we like to really stick it to the homeless in America. Mm-hmm. As if they didn't already have it hard enough.
I mean, publicly peeing because there's no restroom available is not offensive. It's a necessary part of life. Peeing on top of a child, you should be on the sex offenders registry.
I think that's a separate crime, R. Kelly.
Switching straight into wet work. All right, Megan.
So, one thing that should be flanked is if you are caught flashing or streaking, you can end up on the list. Now, in terms of streaking, it depends, A, if you get caught, and B, if you're prosecuted for it.
Okay, all crimes depend on those two things, don't they?
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between... I think a lot of cops, and especially a lot of judges, will see someone who's, like, going around, like, flashing older women or, like, public people versus a teenager who's been dared by his friends to be an idiot.
Uh-huh. Gotcha.
However,
discretion.
It's still possible.
Yeah.
One thing I want to flag as a bad, not good, everyone should know this law, is taking nude photos of yourself as a minor. So, anyone under the age of 18 is considered a minor.
Yeah.
So, let's say you're in high school and your boyfriend asks for a topless photo of you. Not only is he in possession of child pornography, you can be held responsible for creating it. That's a true story.
Don't do it, kids.
Yeah. So
I know people who have gotten in trouble for that, and it like stays with you for a very, very long time, and it can affect a lot of your life.
I personally believe that teenagers can consent to sex with each other. What I personally believe is not the law. In terms of those naked selfies or naked photos of yourself, wait until after you're 18.
And if something is on an app, assume it's there forever, even if you delete it.
Yep. I mean, in terms of naked photos of yourself, that is a tricky conversation, I think. Because
it's a real dicey situation.
I think everyone has the right to feel comfortable with taking naked photos. It gets really hard if you've given them to someone as a partner that you trust in the moment, and then they post it on the internet as revenge porn after you leave, because it is impossible to get those photos taken down, despite the fact that they were uploaded without your permission. So,
yep.
All food for thought.
Just do what your grandparents did and write dirty letters to each other, or
whatever. They 100% sent stills to each other in the mail. Right. I call BS.
They 1,000% did.
Or they carved. Okay, well then, fine.
Were you gonna say they carved hieroglyphic nude images to each other? I'm not letting you get away from that sentence.
Depiction of yourself into a stone.
Cast your boobs into a plaster frame.
Yeah, do a bronze cast. Don't send a dick pic, send a bronze dick model.
Everyone should just stop with the unsolicited dick pics.
Oh yeah, well that goes against lesson number 1.
Yeah. I don't know, revenge porn makes me sad. I never ever blame the person in the photo. I blame the person who uploaded it. But unfortunately, it's the person in the photo who gets shamed.
Yeah, that's a whole other
podcast
no,
topic.
I guess I could be, but it is the same thing. Like, we like to blame victims, especially women.
Yeah.
And
so,
it's not just revenge porn. The other threat is people hacking people's phones and releasing images that are on there and that kind of thing. And it's never the victim's fault. Like, we're all aware in a society that those things happen, but it doesn't mean that you have to spend your life as if somebody is going to rob you at all times.
So back to the sex offenders list. Another thing that can get you on the registry, so we've talked about naked photos as a minor. Consensual sex between minors can get you on the registry.
Ooh.
Legally speaking, you are not considered able to consent until after you've reached the age of consent. So,
which differs by state.
Yes. So, if we take Utah, for example, where the age of consent is 18, despite the fact that you have people who are going through a whole lot of hormones right now, and let's say in theory their parents set them down, explained to them what a condom was, or let's say, better theory, they went to Planned Parenthood and found out.
Or they listened to a podcast or whatever.
And despite the fact that they've thought about this, they're both like in the same grade. If, let's say, a more conservative parent catches them and reports it to the police, it can get them on the registry. And this has actually been a particular problem within the LGBT community, especially with couples of, let's use, for example, a senior in high school, 18-year-old girlfriend with a 17-year-old girlfriend, and the parents threatening to report them to the police. So this is a really dicey portion of the law where I have a lot of feels. I think the easiest way to explain my feels is I believe teenagers can consent to other teenagers. Teenagers cannot consent to adults. And adults should know better. And how we make that into law? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It gets very tricky, especially with the situation that you highlighted there, Megan. Like, what happens if a sophomore is dating a senior and then the senior graduates and then they go off to college and they're together for like 3 to 5 years or whatever. But for a large majority of that time, one person would be having sex with a minor, and that would be very illegal and bad. So just like be aware, world, that it's very underage sex is very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And some states have what are called Romeo and Juliet laws that address that situation, but it's not every state, so you really need to be aware of the states you really need to be aware of the law in your state.
And also the law in your city, because
Yeah.
it can vary. Cities
Really?
can have different things.
Oy.
Yeah. The two last ones I want to just put up there is computer content in front of minors. So if you are not allowed as an adult to be watching porn or something considered offensively graphic in front of a child.
I did not know that. I didn't know that could land you on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Oy.
And you are not allowed to show them
Right.
either, because, I mean...
But that's protecting kids from grooming practices.
Yeah.
You can see a situation where, like, an older brother would give a younger brother some material, or...
Yeah, but if you're not in that situation, if it isn't, like, trying to make puberty a little bit easier for you, if it's someone trying to groom you, that's fucking awful.
That is awful.
Yeah.
So I do see why that's a law.
Mm-hmm. The law makes sense. And the last one is hugging. Unconsensual hugging.
Consent, man.
Yeah. It's all about that consent.
It is.
Yeah.
So non-consensual hugging can get you can be the lowest tier of sex offender.
Yeah, but I think I'm basically on a lawyer's website right now, reading through all the things that can get you on the registry. And the way that they explain it is like inappropriate hugging with children.
Ay, gross.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
So I have a feeling if you're a normal person, you're probably not going to get caught on the hugging thing.
Well, I also think that if you're going around giving people unwanted hugs, there should be some kind of deterrent.
Yeah,
especially if they're weirdly sexual hugs.
This is something that I feel really passionate about that I don't think gets talked about that often. We tell children to hug their family members and hug our family friends and have these physical relationships with the people that we're comfortable with. And that is so not okay. And it's really done excessively to women, especially young girls, where you're just like, oh, go sit on his lap, go give him a kiss. This is Uncle blah, blah, blah. And basically you're just setting up this psychology that it's impolite to not give physical affection to somebody. And you should tell your kids to be comfortable and only consent to the stuff that they're comfortable with.
Oh, I hear you.
I'm
think you're totally
super
right.
angry about this thing. Sorry. I hate it so much.
Well, I think you have a really great point, and I had not really thought about that. Huh. Colin's got a lot of thinking to do today.
A lot of thinking. So, the only reason I bring up the registry is we do want nudity to be seen in a better light. We all have a naked body. We all have seen...
I wish I was naked right now.
Yeah.
I could be, for all you know, listener.
I
think
I'm not, but I could be.
I think it's glorious when you have like a naked day in your own apartment.
Oh, yeah.
Like a couple years, a million years ago, I was working on this film set where basically I had to sleep in a room with like 15 other girls. And then when I had to do this for like a month and a half. And when I finally got home to my own apartment, like literally I poured myself a glass of wine and spent 8 hours just completely in the nude watching TV. It was amazing.
Nice. I also like going to the Korean spa and just being nude.
Mm-hmm.
Just nuding around.
It's glorious to be nude. So
Now I'm afraid to, though, because I'll get locked out. And
you can never be nude in a public space ever again.
No, we'll never nude.
It's weird because there's things in life where they should be one way, but legally they are another way. And historically, we've found ways to change this. So, do I think there are layers of this that are wrong? Like, of course I do. Do I think that there are layers of this that there's no other way to protect against evil? Also, yes. But just because there's certain things that should be socially acceptable, like showing nipples in public or generally being able to be nude in public, I think is fine. It's not going to stop me from being arrested.
It's true, you gotta be aware of the law.
Yeah.
Until you can change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on nudity?
In conclusion, nudity is a land of contrast.
Do we think we have an episode somewhere in there?
Somewhere.
Yeah.
We're just talking about nudity.
Yeah, I think this is a good one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't stress it.
Cool. I'm Megan.
I'm
We'll
Marcella.
agree that the concept
I'm
will
nude.
contribute to the rearing of a mature person.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you don't have
Enjoy the naked truth.